Welcome to the deep dive. We cut through the noise to get you the insights that matter. Today, we're really digging into something that sounds simple, but it's become a huge point of tension where we
Yeah.
actually do our work. Yeah, we're talking return to office policies, RTO, and, the surprising things driving them. It's often about more than just productivity. So, our mission here is to unpack the latest research, different viewpoints on remote work, being in the office, hybrid setups, all of it. This deep dive should give you a shortcut to understanding why companies are pushing for RTO, how it's really affecting employees, and maybe, just maybe, what the future of work could actually look like. We've looked at a ton of stuff: HR journals, academic studies, business reports. So let's just jump right in. Okay, so we usually think return to office is, all about getting more done, boosting output. But what if there's something else going on? Something maybe a bit more provocative. Let's kick off with this idea from HR Daily Advisor. Could some companies be using these RTO mandates less about value and more about, well, reasserting control and shifting blame for poor performance onto employees? That's quite a claim. Is that really what the research is showing? Or are there maybe other reasons, perhaps misguided ones, driving these mandates?
That's a really good place to start. And what's fascinating is research from the University of Pittsburgh, which Forbes cited, actually found some pretty strong evidence supporting that idea. Their analysis showed that RTO mandates were, more likely in companies that hadn't been doing well stock-wise recently. And the kicker is, these mandates had no significant impact on profitability or stock returns afterwards. So the key insight seems to be, for some firms at least, RTO isn't really a growth strategy. It might be more of a, defensive move, trying to get control back or maybe even point the finger away from other internal problems maybe not even related to where people work.
And it gets weirder, right? When you see companies that actually sell remote services turning around and being super strict about their own employees coming back to the office.
Yeah.
Integral points this out with examples like JP Morgan Chase, Amazon, and even the federal government pushing mandates. It makes you really scratch your head about the logic.
Yeah, if you connect the dots, it really suggests this clash, doesn't it, between old school leadership thinking and this new reality where employees expect flexibility. They've shown they can thrive with it. Integral mentioned how JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon basically scoffed at an employee petition asking for flexibility. It really puts the pressure back on companies, I think. They need to maybe look at their own management issues, build trust instead of just forcing everyone back into an old model that might not fit anymore, or ironically, doesn't even match the services they sell.
Okay, so we've touched on some surprising, maybe even uncomfortable reasons behind RTO mandates and the pushback from employees. But, to get the full picture, we absolutely have to look at the arguments for having people physically in the office because they are compelling. For a lot of people, the office isn't just desks and chairs. It's about working together, those chance encounters, building actual relationships. Density.io found that, what was it, 87% of employees agree the office is vital for that collaboration and connection. That's a huge number.
It really is.
Yeah.
And there's older research too, like a Stanford study back in 2014 that found people working together in the same space were 50% more effective at certain tasks.
Sure.
It boosted motivation, engagement. And we're not just talking about replacing it with video calls. MIT's Human Dynamics Lab did research showing that the most valuable communication happens in person. It accounted for something like 35% of a team's performance. And here's a stat from that MIT research that always blows my mind. Asking for something face-to-face was 34 times more effective than asking over email.
Yeah.
34 times.
Wow, 34 times. That's massive.
Yeah.
It really underscores that there's something fundamental about being physically present. And
Yeah.
you see this reflected in leaders' concerns too, right? Even someone like Mark Benioff at Salesforce, who is a big early champion of remote work. He later questioned if they were failing to build that tribal knowledge with new hires because there wasn't that strong office culture. So even the pioneers grapple with this.
Exactly. Which leads to the question, okay, what does the office give you that you just can't quite replicate virtually? Density.io actually breaks it down into 4 key benefits. First, it's about feeding off others' energy. That buzz. A Harvard Business Review study showed even just who you sit near can impact your work. Virtual interactions can feel a bit forced sometimes, right? Lacking that natural energy.
Totally. You can't replicate that spontaneous vibe easily online. What's this, the second one?
Second is less convoluted communication. I mean, we've all lived through the endless, you're on mute, or, oops, Sarah froze again, moments, especially early in the pandemic. It's just inherently easier to manage multiple conversations, read cues, see who wants to jump in when you're all in the same room. Less tech static.
Yeah, the tech hurdles are real. Okay, third.
Third is the unplanned collaboration. This is a big one. Those moments of genius that happen in the hallway or the quick chat after the meeting ends, innovation often sparks there. But when a Zoom call ends, boom, everyone vanishes. Those spontaneous follow-ups just disappear.
The water cooler moments actually matter. And the fourth?
Fourth, more trust and relationship building. Research out of Germany from University of Munster and TU Dortmund found that building trust online is just harder. You have to be much more explicit, articulate everything clearly, and don't underestimate the power of simple eye contact. James Lang called it central to human social life. It creates a different kind of connection, a deeper one, often when you're physically present.
Okay, that's a really strong case for the physical office energy, smoother communication, spontaneous ideas, trust. But despite all that, the reality is employees have voted with their feet, or rather with their keyboards. Integral's research, like their index with Harris Poll, it shows this massive disconnect, right? Employees want flexibility, and often they actually do perform better with it. It's a powerful counter-argument.
The data absolutely backs that up. You look at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they found a statistically significant increase in what they call total factor productivity. Basically, how efficiently companies use resources across dozens of industries when remote work ramped up during COVID. And it's not just a blip. A December 2023 study on U.S. federal workers by OPM, it reported notable improvements in hiring, keeping staff, employee performance, overall productivity, and significant cost savings from telework.
Wow, even the government saw boosts.
Yeah, and even a UK study looking at a police department, not exactly your typical office job, showed a 12% productivity jump, mostly because people face fewer distractions working remotely.
Fewer distractions, that makes sense. And that improved focus seems key. I remember seeing the Headway survey cited in Employee Benefit News. It found over half of remote workers felt their work-life balance improved. And crucially, 57% kept regular schedules. But get this, 55% spent over 6 hours on focused work each day. Compare that to office workers at just 4.9 hours. That's over an hour more deep work time per day.
It really highlights the benefit of controlling your own environment, and it translates directly into preference. Greenlee notes that almost 80%, 80%, of people would rather keep working remotely, even if the office is open. Thalia Maria Turikis from Headway put it bluntly, warning that forcing people back into the old frameworks that used to cause stress and burnout will have serious consequences.
And those consequences are showing up in talent, aren't they?
Absolutely. Resume Builder found 80% of companies admitted losing staff because of RTO policies. And almost half of workers said they'd think about quitting if forced back full-time. So the message for companies is pretty stark. Ignore this preference, and you risk losing your best people.
Okay, so boiling it down, the pull of remote work is undeniable. Greenlee points to the obvious flexibility, enabling things like the digital nomad lifestyle and the improved work-life balance, especially saving that commute time. That's huge, like getting back almost 5 hours a week for some people. Plus, you mentioned the employer benefit tapping into a global talent pool. That's a game changer for finding niche skills.
Definitely. And it allows for that personalized workflow we talked about. That can seriously boost not just productivity, but happiness too. Forbes even concluded remote workers could be up to 20% happier. And it's not just about feeling good. It helps people manage personal tasks better alongside work, and even supports professional growth by freeing up that time formerly lost to commuting or office chatter.
All right, so we've laid out the arguments. The push for RTO, often driven by control or traditional views, versus the strong pull of remote work, backed by productivity data and overwhelming employee preference. But now let's get into the really interesting, maybe trickier part, the hidden downsides of remote work. Because while it offers freedom, it also brings real challenges, especially around mental health, and maybe surprisingly, sustainability. It feels like during the pandemic, we just adapted super fast to make it work, right? Focused on getting tasks done. But maybe we didn't fully clock the deeper human costs until later. So let's start with that psychological impact. It sounds serious.
It really does warrant attention. There's a recent study by Ayana Jayan, published in the Academic Journal, that surveyed 50 remote workers, and the findings are quite stark. Let's break it down. Anxiety. 62% reported more anxiety. And this was strongly linked to feeling isolated. 80% of the people in the study reported feeling isolated.
Wow, 80% feeling isolated. That's huge.
It is. Then, depression. 48%, nearly half, reported symptoms. This was linked to poor work-life balance. 60% said they struggled to separate work from personal life.
That blurring of boundaries is tough.
Definitely. Next, stress. A massive 72% reported increased stress. And this correlated with presenteeism, working even when you're sick or dealing with personal stuff. 70% admitted doing that.
Oof, that pressure to always be on.
Exactly. And finally, burnout. 58% felt burned out. This was tied to inadequate technical support. Half the participants felt they didn't have the tech help they needed. So the big takeaway here isn't that remote work is inherently bad, but that it needs intentional support. Without addressing isolation, promoting boundaries, providing resources, companies risk making things like anxiety and burnout worse, not better.
Those numbers are sobering. And beyond the individual mental health, what about the cultural impact on the company?
Right. Mo Hamzian wrote about this in Forbes. He brought up the infrastructure shift, how the cost and responsibility for having a proper ergonomic workspace suddenly shifted to the employee at home. It's like a hidden pay cut, almost.
I never quite thought of it that way, but yeah.
He also highlighted how that sense of belonging is diluted when everyone's scattered. It's harder to build those diverse connections spontaneously, which can hurt inclusivity efforts.
So does this impact the company's bottom line in the long run?
That's the big question Mo Hamzian raises. He notes that for many companies, building large-scale value remotely hasn't yet been proven on a sustained basis. Synchronization becomes a huge hurdle. And he points out capitalism requires growth, more revenue, more profit. That needs people pulling together effectively, and it's just harder to achieve that level of cohesion when everyone's dispersed. It can drag down innovation and just getting things done.
Okay, and then there's the environment. We often assume less commuting, greener. But Greenlee pointed out that overall emissions are basically back to pre-pandemic levels. That kind of busts a common myth, doesn't it? What's going on there? How can companies or individuals actually make remote work greener?
Yeah, it's counterintuitive. The issue is that sustainability then becomes mostly the employee's responsibility. People might use the time or money they save commuting for other things that create emissions, like taking more personal trips. One study showed a 26% increase. Or just using more electricity at home for heating, cooling, all the devices. So yeah, the office might use less energy when it's empty, but individual home energy use can spike, potentially canceling out the commuting benefit or even making things worse overall. Remote work can be greener, definitely. But it really depends on the individual making conscious choices to reduce their footprint, and that doesn't always happen automatically.
Right. It's not an automatic win for the planet. Okay, so we've got RTO mandates, potentially masking management issues, a strong case for in-person connection, an equally strong pull towards remote flexibility and productivity, and then these significant downsides around mental health, culture, and the environment. It's complex. So where does that leave us? What does this mean for you listening, and how can companies actually navigate this? It's clear one size definitely doesn't fit all, but surely there are some smart strategies emerging.
Absolutely. There's no magic bullet, but frameworks are developing. Integral outlines a really thoughtful strategic path forward. First, think role-specific. Not every job needs to be in the office 5 days a week, or even at all. Some thrive remotely, others need that in-person interaction. Tailor the approach.
Makes sense. Don't treat everyone the same.
Exactly. Second, empower managers. They're on the front lines. They need the training and autonomy to figure out how best to assign tasks and support their specific teams in a hybrid world. Third, engage employees. Don't just drop mandates from on high. Involve people in the decisions about how and where work gets done. That builds buy-in and trust.
Crucial for morale.
Totally.
Yeah.
Fourth, invest in hybrid infrastructure. That means good digital tools for remote folks, yes, but also rethinking the office space itself. Make it a place people want to come to for specific, purposeful interactions, not just because they have to. And finally, be transparent. Leaders need to clearly explain why they're making certain decisions about RTO or hybrid models. What's the business reason? Don't let rumors fill the void. And Integral makes a key point. Focusing on regaining control is the wrong goal. Building a culture of trust and respect. That's way better for keeping people, keeping them happy, and ultimately for productivity.
That focus on trust over control feels critical. And it seems to echo what Employee Benefit News was saying too, right? About reshaping the whole employee experience to support both flexibility and accountability. They had some concrete suggestions for employers, didn't they? Like offering real mental health support, virtual therapy, mindfulness apps, providing stipends for home office setups, making sure people have ergonomic chairs and good tech, encouraging flexible hours with scheduling tools, actively fighting isolation with virtual team events, and investing in professional development for remote skills. It's about building the scaffolding for success.
Precisely. It's proactive support. And Greenlee adds another layer to this, encouraging green remote habits. Things like providing energy-efficient laptops, or maybe offering incentives for sustainable choices on hybrid days like bike services or public transport passes. It's about, as they put it, showing employees the doors to sustainability, guiding them, rather than just leaving it all up to them or assuming remote is automatically green.
So putting it all together, this deep dive really shows that the best path forward isn't about choosing one extreme or the other. It's about finding a really thoughtful balance. It has to weigh company needs, individual well-being, collaboration, autonomy, all of it. Like Andrew said, ultimately, work isn't about where you are every day. It's about what you do and how you do it.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today, navigating this really complex landscape of return to office, remote work, and just the whole future of how we work. From those sometimes surprising reasons behind RTO mandates to the clear benefits and, yes, the hidden challenges of working remotely, it's obvious there's no easy answer here.
No, definitely not. We've seen it's not just a simple productivity calculation. It digs into really fundamental human needs for connection, for autonomy, even for feeling like we're being responsible towards the environment. The psychological pressures, especially from remote work isolation or blurred boundaries, are very real. But so are the opportunities remote work offers for more flexibility, better focus, and potentially greater well-being, if managed right. And this whole debate is clearly still evolving. Companies are experimenting, employees are pushing back. As everyone tries to find that sweet spot, what really stands out to you listening right now about how work should be organized going forward?
Maybe think about this. Forbes suggested that human beings fundamentally require a sense of belonging. If that's true, and if our whole concept of a workplace has been fundamentally shaken up, how will you, whether you're a leader, a manager, or an employee, help foster that crucial sense of belonging and keep everyone pulling in the same direction, no matter where the work actually happens? Something to mull over.